Alright guys, hope you're all keeping well, hope you're all keeping safe, looking forward to your weekend. I know I am. Today's a bit of a shorter one, not a whole lot to talk about in today's video. I want to talk about a possible change coming to the Merciless exotic, whereby it might augment skills, and then talk about the possibility of exotics in the future, exotic weapons that augment skills, kind of like how Caduceus did in the Division 1. Also, I do want to talk about Skyscraper, and I want to talk today more about the fact that we don't know if this is going to be a paid option or not, and then talk about the question of whether this is going to be for Warlords of New York players only. With that said, hopefully you enjoy this one. If you do, drop a like down below, subscribe for Division content, and let's begin. The first thing I want to talk about is the possibility of a change coming to the Merciless exotic. A complete change almost, something we don't have in the game right now. And this comes after Gary Scott on Twitter tweeted at Bruce saying, any plans to completely rework the Merciless now that we have another exotic rifle that shoots detonators that eventually explode? Just seems that their talents are similar and Ravenous is just extremely better. Bruce responded saying, they are a bit similar, any suggestions? To which Gary responded saying, a specific suggestion? No, not yet. But I was thinking of it being an exotic rifle that augments skills. Most exotics augment damage or DPS, but we don't really have an exotic weapon that augments skills. Being off the front lines using a rifle seems to fit the playstyle as well. And this is when Bruce responded agreeing that an exotic that synergizes with more skill builds is needed. Caduceus, anyone? Now I have to agree, the Merciless and the Ravenous are very similar in what they do, and we don't have any exotic weapons in the game that augment skills. Something like the Caduceus could work in the Division 2, something where, you know, for every headshot you gain 1% repair skills or something along the lines of that. Obviously, when you're at skill tier 6, you rely mostly on your skills to do the work rather than weapons. But you still need to fire your weapon, you still need to use your weapons. So having a weapon that can augment the skills that you've got, I think that would be excellent. And I think that would be a great addition to the game. Let me know what suggestions you have in the comments for an exotic worthy of this role. What's interesting to me is Bruce appears to be interested in this concept, whether that be a change to an existing exotic like the Merciless or new exotics. You know, personally I think having Merciless change to better fit this type of role would be good, but then the devs would have to introduce more exotics that could do this as well. There's an endless amount of combinations that could work here, and I really hope the devs consider this role in the future. The other thing is that if they change the Merciless, then it's only the Ravenous that has, you know, this explosion type of damage that it does, and that's tied to the raid, so there would be no other way to get it unless you play through the raid. So, you know, maybe just having new exotics that do augment skills, I think that would be a good addition to the games. And it does appear that at least Bruce is already thinking about it, and it's something that we could probably expect for future content. Next up, and I want to talk about the Skyscraper mode a little bit. Not so much about what the mode is going to look like, but more about something the devs brought up on State of the Game, and that's whether it's going to be paid or not. Firstly though, what do we know about this mode? Well, not a lot really. Nothing actually, if you don't believe what the data mined information said about this mode, because the devs have actually not confirmed anything at this point, and we're not going to hear anything about it until the end of this month. The thing is, the data mined info is how we actually found out the Skyscraper mode did exist in the first place, and why the devs came out and then had to acknowledge its existence. So, you know, I think it's quite easy to assume that the remaining information about this mode is probably accurate, especially because this information comes from audio files that are already in the game. So what do we know about this mode? Well, from the data mined information, what we know is that it's purely PvE focused mode. We don't know that for sure, but there's no details around it being PvP, and I highly doubt there's any PvP in this. So I think it's purely a PvE focused mode, which I'm okay with. We know it's going to take place in a skyscraper in New York, and we believe there's 100 floors that you have to ascend. This is what the data mined info said. Every 10 floors there is a safe floor where progress will be saved, and this means you can actually leave the activity and return at any time. After the 80th floor there will no longer be any safe floors, so you either have to make it to the top or you have to return back to the 80th floor. And the mode will likely drop with TU11, which has been confirmed by the devs, and this should be released sometime in September. I presume the latest will be October, depending on how well the TU11 PTS goes. Now, this is what the data mined kind of leak said, and I've got no reason not to believe this at this point. That's a lot. There's obviously a lot we don't know, of course, and none of this has been confirmed by the devs. With that said, the question of whether or not this will be paid or not, this came up in State of the Game, and the question was actually avoided by Yannick, which is a little bit disconcerting if you thought this mode would be free. So the question for you guys is, what would you think about paying for this content? Would you? And if you wouldn't, why wouldn't you? Now, I have to admit, I'm really on the fence with this, and I have to explain why. On one hand, the idea of having to pay for a replayable game mode, a lot of people have been asking for since launch, for a very long time, seems a little bit unfair. But on the other hand, we got free content in year one. We got all of that free content, and it wasn't exactly good. Whereas in The Division, we got paid content like Survival, Underground and all the other game modes, Resistance, and they were excellent. Now, if the content is paid, then naturally, I feel as though the mode will be way better developed than free content, at least from the history of the game. Is it unfair that we should have to pay for good content? Yes, probably. They shouldn't release free content if it's not good. But Destiny is able to add new modes almost every season, and you do have to pay for those seasons. Unlike The Division up until this point, the only thing you're paying for is a season pass, but there's no modes or anything attached to that. So, you know what I think? I think it will be paid, but I think it will be included as part of the season pass. Now, I highly doubt they will expect people to pay for the season pass and then this game mode separately. I think doing it this way will encourage those who may not have thought the season pass was worth the money to reconsider, if the mode is indeed as good as everyone hopes. But I just don't know. I think the fact that Yannick really just didn't want to say anything, probably because he's not allowed, but secondly, his attitude suggested to me that it's not something that he wanted to confirm at this point and get a backlash on. The other question is, will it be available to non-Warlords of New York players? I'm afraid I don't think so. The mode itself will likely take place in New York, so unless you have the DLC, I doubt you'll be able to play it. With that said, the mode may take place outside of the open world map. Actually, I think it will. Like the raids and the other missions, somewhere separate that you fly to. And this will be confirmed by the data mine leak that says Kelso actually drops you there on a helicopter. So it's probably going to be in New York, but outside of the map you can run to, and you're going to have to take a helicopter to get there. So there is the possibility that non-Warlords of players will be able to get there from the Washington home base, but I'd still be surprised if the devs allow this to happen. I think the only place you're going to be able to get it from is the New York kind of home base. Do I hope it's available to everyone? Absolutely. It's just not going to happen. The devs would have... they're going to have to create both a level 30 and a level 40 mode if they wanted to do it that way. And I just don't think they've got the resources and stuff to really make that happen. I hope the devs surprise me, surprise all of us, because I think most people probably feel the same way about the likelihood of this happening. I think most people would want everyone to get involved. I don't think anyone likes to be excluded or likes other people to be excluded from content. But all in all, I hope that Skyscraper can live up to the huge demand for a new replayable game mode. Something that we've been waiting for a very long time. Alright, well that's it for today's video, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Like I said, a bit of a short one today, but, I wanted to get some content out for you guys. I like to keep these questions going and talking about all this stuff. And if there is any tidbits of news or stuff that might be coming, then of course I'm going to cover that in a video, like the Merciless change here that might or might not be coming. Hopefully you all have a fantastic weekend, and until next week, Epic out.